Okay, with that out of the way, here we are in the second quarter of the fourth era. And what's happened so far, primarily in the last turn, let's look pretty quickly. The revolutionary ideology has caused so much problem that we're not really seeing a lot of wars against other players, although we are seeing some activity happening. France, I can't even fucking remember what people are doing, is doing some exploration stuff, it looks like, which was successful and triggers kind of a race for Mali. Both they and the English now have a claim to it. France toyed with the idea of going to war with Spain. Austria did as well. Neither one's probably going to do it. I don't know what the fuck the Spaniards are doing. They're trying to convert the religions of this, to get rid of this revolutionary ideology and see what we can do about that. And in fact, this is no longer revolutionary, so I guess it flips over. There's very little effect between the two. The English are working towards vassalizing the Portuguese, a big advantage for the 7 Years' War somehow. I don't want to think about that too much. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't think Portugal was involved in the 7 Years' War. But they may have been. They may have been. Austria toyed with the idea of attacking Denmark, of attacking France. I don't know where they're heading right now. I know they want to get another Adriatic port, but it feels like I'm just bumbling around. Adding a point to this would be useful. Mainly not much is going on there. It looks like they fired off their event, which was to reduce their debt, so they might be able to do something more. The Poles have gone to war with Genoa over Kaffa. And, well, we forgot about the Turks, who have been mainly dealing with, preparing to deal with all the unrest that they have in place. I guess that's about it. I'm running into more and more problems, both in my own life, but with the game in terms of being able to accept what it's portraying, the level of abstraction, the things that are being abstracted away. Things like where armies actually are and stuff. That's really, really beginning to bug me, especially since colonization and wars aren't happening as much as they should, and it has to do with the cubes not being out in enough quantity. And that may be my own fault, but it may also be, partially at least, the fault of the design itself. Well, the Turks open up this next round around getting rid of all their unrest and all their cubes, basically, and hope for the best that nobody wants to attack them. Probably going to pass on my next time, so this is the only opportunity anybody's going to get, and I don't think anybody wants to. It is a beautiful day. It feels like summer. The weather's that we're getting, it's going to be in the 80s today, but tomorrow it's going to hit the 90s, which is kind of crazy at this time of year. I don't know. Right now it's, still like 9 in the morning or so, but it's pretty out. I don't know if you guys can see. French plans appear to be to launch an attack here into Africa. This is somewhat problematic. Here's why. I have enough ships that I could actually, if I could move them all, get a very large army there. But I can only get 3 with a normal naval move. So if I move ships into the Bay of Biscay, would work fine. I can move up to 3 ships into there, actually. The problem, of course, is these guys can't reach. So I could move one from the English Channel and the 2 from here. It may not be the wisest move, but that's a possibility. But, and I have a lot of light ships, so that's kind of nice. But I have this filled up, but I'd only have one ship here. A trading action might allow me to shift that around some more. And I do have a diplomacy for that. So maybe I want to do that first. Because I don't have enough money for the army that I want to build, and I have a fair amount of loans. Has my nasty card been played yet? Oh, see, there's the corruption in the colonies, though. There's just so many things I don't want to have happen, right? Ugh. So I may need to think about playing something like this. Reform colonial units, discard, add to half, or pay 3 to add 1. That would be horrible. Look the other way. Would still get me 1. It would cost me some money. There's no real big advantage to the player who chooses this. Sure, I got some of these. Disputed succession, not much help there. The Enlightenment. Gaining control of this might be useful. Because somebody already hit us with an event, the Louis XV event over there. That already smacked us, and that ate up our money. Fuck. Oh. So somebody is almost certain to pick this fucker. The Enlightenment gives some options to fiddling around with cards. This doesn't really help me, but I'd have more colonies in play. So like the adding to half my distant colonies, well, I'll only have 1 additional. So it's not a big deal for me to leave that out there. All right, so let's start with a trade operation, I guess. And see if we can get boats into here and here or whatever. A lot of options. I ended up taking, so I got 2 that hit Champagne. This one produces more money. One that hit Genoa, where I can move boats, but they don't have to support this. With the piracy in Genoa, that produced less money. So this one Champagne card got me $10 there, which is pretty decent. If I still had Bourgeon, that would have worked out well. Now, something about this feels funny, right? Some of it you can kind of argue, especially if you're looking at things like the East India Company and how it had its own private army and everything. But the idea of like shifting boats around at random to trade by the trade cards, and it really is kind of at random, allows a player to conduct a military invasion. It feels funky. So like, it's a little hard to see if I had trade in Bordeaux, why that would give me an opportunity to conduct a military invasion over here. I could probably come up with some very, very tenuous argument for it. This was probably a mistake. What I might want to do on my next turn, if I remember, is do a military operation, pull 3 ships into the Bay of Biscay, and attack that pirate. And then, assuming I survive with all 3 ships, one of the ships during the naval operation can move to here, and that'll allow me to move a somewhat larger army into place. I'm a little worried because I'm planning on taking Mali, and Mali is... no, not that way. And Mali is a double city. Now, 3 armies, including an artillery, perhaps a leader. There won't be a leader on their side. I'm probably safe. I probably don't need to work around to try to get the extra shipping in place. But by moving shipping into place in this direction, I'm actually supporting possible advances to the east, which might be not a bad idea. I don't know. And of course, you know, if I'm setting up to go into Africa, it makes more sense for me to go over to South America. But I think my goal, bases in North America, they're all in North America, or, well, Antilles or Guyana. But I don't end up getting anything, you know, I don't get any advantages for exploring and creating colonies in South America. That's not one of my goals. Now, there's advantages to it, I guess, and there may be something over there in the missions, though I doubt it. But it does feel really, really weird that, although maybe it makes up for there being no Portugal in the game, that my national goals and everything else, there's really almost no advantage to me expanding into territories that I don't have some kind of mission for. Yes, I know. In the computer game, in the board game, you pursue the things that you get victory points for, but there's almost always fairly significant advantages to increasing to increasing your colonization. Taking colonies and building them in places where you're not going to get particularly large points. It's not as efficient, but it still increases your income and everything. It does here too, but it means less, right? Money is much less important in this game. It doesn't give you cube power, nor should it with whatever cubes represent. And it gives you maybe some manpower. But it doesn't feel like you're really, and especially late in the game like we are here, where, you know, long-term, hey, I've got an extra couple bucks and an extra man every turn, is really not going to mean much. So it feels so funny to not particularly care about things at all. You know, looking at Spain right now, and as I look through the War of Succession, you know, it's not them that's interested in it, but maybe Austria. I could go to war, you know, marriage is in place, that would affect things. I'm sorry, the alliance is in place, that would affect things. So I'd have to build an alliance somewhere else. I think, I don't know, it may not impact this, because an alliance just prevents you. Take a free declare war action targeting only that realm. I think the fact that it's a declare war action means that I can't do it without moving the alliance first. But Austria could conceivably go to war with Venice fairly cheaply because there is a marriage there. And we could get a disputed succession. And that actually gets me the Adriatic ports and gets me one of the areas that I need for my other goal that I have in place. So that's something to keep in mind. Unfortunately for me, I've eaten all my military cubes. Venice may also be difficult to take because it is sitting on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 military capability. That's a pretty big army. Yeah. Oh, and I already seem to be at war with someone. No, Poland's at war with someone. What the fuck? Poland's at war with Genoa, that's right. Okay. Actually, the video I'm watching right now has been mentioning the siege of Kaffa back in the 1300s. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what the fuck to do with Spain, though. I know that I need to do a reorg and convert these two areas and get rid of the revolutionary ideology in the West. And hope that's good enough. But maybe there's something I want to do before that. The answer to that is yes. I'm going to grab the Enlightenment. I'm going to get $2 for that. You might ask why. Well, the reason why is that I have a stability to burn. Okay. Draw idea cards to create or complete a new row of display of ideas. You can replace any unpicked ideas on the display then with an idea of matching type of your choice from the deck. Then everybody gets to choose, starting with me, and I have the capability of doing the embrace the research without too much problem. This will actually allow me to switch this over. My current goal is to grab tolerance because that is so powerful, and I'm going to have an unrest problem this turn. It gives me control of these, which may be very important. All right, so what came up? Bureaucracy. During phase 4, step B, gain $2 extra plus $1 for every full 10 in your base income. Doesn't seem like much of a value, but here's the thing. This will also give me victory points, these unclaimed ones, which is somewhat desirable. Line infantry, that cancels out tercios if you have it for both sides in the battle, but you basically get the result of tercios from it. And finally, trade companies. When you collect trade income from a trade node on a distant continent, no ship is required to trace the connection to your capital area through any non-hostile distant sea zone that is faced by your own ports. Which means if you have colonies in areas, you assume to have a free ship to transport your goods. It makes a lot of sense, actually. However, I get a chance to fuck around with one of these, and I'm not the furthest advanced in trade, so I may want to get rid of that. Mercantilism, this is so hard to tell. If you get enough, you get more money. They get less, but it's very seldom the case that you have two people in the same trade zone. Line infantry doesn't do much, and I have tercios, but so do a lot of people. Bureaucracy, I don't really give a shit about. So, you know, those are, and then there's, yeah, the trade companies. So there's 4 that I can replace. So if I see something that I really, really want, I'll do that. Even if I'm not going to take it now, even if I'm going to take tolerance this turn. If I hadn't taken the path that I've taken, and I've already gone a little bit down that path, I could have gone for revolutionary regime, which is gain a stability whenever an opponent researches this idea. At the start, which, you know, probably Turkey would pick it up too. At the start of phase 3, you lose 1 stability if not at war. During phase 4, you gain, which I believe is the cube collection, you gain 2 military extra. This is the French Revolution here, in terms of, you know, how it impacts things. Instant effects, you gain 2 military. You set your stability to -3. It's not a decrease in stability, it just drops to -3, which means if your stability already sucks, this is appealing. And state religion to revolutionary ideology. The research cost for this is modified by your current stability, which is really, really appealing. This is actually maybe not that bad, because even though I've chosen already, my development, I still have all of those. I still have a lot of revolutionary ideology around me. I could start using missionaries to make things revolutionary. That's actually really, really appealing. I'm going to keep looking, but that's so far the first one. I think I like that better than tolerance, to tell you the truth. So we added revolutionary regime in a second government type. Constitutional monarchy is not up there. And I haven't seen a card that allowed anybody to take it yet, like automatically. Draw idea cards. Okay, you can replace any or an idea matching. All players then choose. I'm going to embrace the research. Research an idea for free. gain one admin cube, which we want, but we lose a stability. Sorry, admin cube. And we pick up, so this is the advantage to going first here. We get this. That gives us 2 victory points as usual. We'll give victory points. We are almost certain Turkey is going to take this as well. If they can afford it, well, their stability's down. They'd only lose a cube. It's kind of a good deal for them. But we would get a stability out of that as well as a point. So it's kind of nice for us there. England. Well, this is the hard call. Does England want a stability or lose a couple of cubes and get a research event? And this is where it's really tough because there's a whole bunch of yummy research stuff available now, right? That I'll be first person in getting the most possible advantages from that. But I'm at -3 stability, so I'm not just trading a stability away, and I will lose a cube. I gain an admin cube, and then I lose 2 admin cubes for the stability loss. So at this point, I have to make a decision for every country what they're doing. No matter what, you get something out of this. This is a good card, right? But the get something might not be a new technology. It might be, I'll just take the stability gain. That sounds better. So England and Austria each took, Austria fucked up. They gain 1, they lose 2. But I already did it for the English. Each took technologies. England took the trade companies, which allow you to make connections without ships. I think that's going to be valuable. The other thing that might have been plausible would be a colonization policy. That actually might be even better, but there's a limit to 4 of those in there at any one time. So I would lose something, plus I would get more victory points this way. The Austrians took tolerance, which gave points to their main competitors as well, but they really believe that that's going to be of some importance. None of the other things really appeal to them all that much. Now we're at Poland, and Poland's fucked. Unless something comes up, I need this military cube. I can't afford, I'm in the middle of a war, I'm about ready to siege Kaffa, and I can't afford to do embracing the research. So I will trust the old ways. It also became revolutionary. I changed the color. This was orange for counter-reform, now it's red. Are there any Catholic countries? Well, there are. All the Catholic countries had gone counter-reform already. But yeah, Turkey also did this. And what this means, so that particular choice is an interesting one because you lose your cubes, but then you get 2 military cubes for having chosen it. And your stability gets set at -3, which is no harm. But the bonus here, Spain not only got a victory point off Turkey choosing it as well, but they got a stability back. So they're back where they were, and maybe better. Well, definitely better. This is going to require me to convert this back to revolutionary. But hey, that's life, right? I don't know. We have 1 remaining, which is the French. And France also is set up to do their thing, right? Do they care that much? They're not already committed the way the Poles are. The Poles are at war. They would have to take a white peace. That would be a penalty, all kind of bad stuff. So Poland could not afford to embrace change. France may be able to, but let's see what it's going to cost us and then compare to what we gain. So it's going to cost us 1 military to declare war. We'll build an army. 1 military to do a naval operation, get us there. 1 military to reach. So we can afford it because we'll be getting an admin cube. We have 2 cubes we can get rid of. We don't have to do a reorg. We don't need that dip cube for anything. So then the question becomes, what would France want? Well, Turkey would love this. France might like it too. A little bit of extra income. Our money's not in great shape, and we have those big loans sitting out there. Mercantilism. I'm looking at the ones where I'm going to get the bonus of being the first person there. If you have a lot, you get more from trade. That doesn't seem like a great choice. What about things like absolute monarchy? Gain 1 each time you enforce a peace on an opponent. This is really nice if you can get your stability up, but it has bad costs. However, I think it's worth doing the bureaucracy. So I gain an admin cube, I lose 2 cubes because of stability loss. I get to research the bureaucracy, which will give me 2 victory points. And now I have to remember I get more money during that phase. It's getting kind of painful to remember all the card effects in play. And again, you don't have like a sheet, although this could be possible. Something kind of like in Age of Renaissance over there that allows you, wow, this battery ran out real fast. I'm going to have to do all these special effects or secondary effects from Spain's point of view now. But before after I do that, then I have to deal with what the new card is. So for colonial effects, and now I have a nice little military pile. Wow, that'll help me resolve all that unrest that I've got. I'd rather not gain more unrest. Might be able to siege cities, whatever. So what I'm going to do is I get the choice. I'm going to kill this off. Let's look at other players. England. England is going to lose a cube, and they have to take an unrest somewhere. Take that up here in Canada, I guess. Who else is playing? I think it's just France and Turkey. Turkey loses a cube. They're maxed out illegally, you know. And we'll continue to gain these, but that's okay. And then France loses a cube and takes an unrest in theirs, which is going to suck. Okay. Now we get to expand with blue over here with Persia and with pink, which is, I'm going to put this here. I don't trust that table. If I bump it, it's shakier than everything else. Okay. So, blue. Well, obviously we want to fuck with the Turks. We'll go into here. Just creating things that will go into unrest or whatever, that's less appealing, like to put claims on stuff as far as I'm concerned. Now this is Spain's thinking about the Danes. Spain and Dane. Do I want to go overseas? I don't know. I want to make Denmark weaker. That's what I want to fucking do. They're huge. Is there anything they could do that would really screw? I mean, they're not going to screw with... I'm trying to think if I can fuck with Turkey, you know, by putting Danes down here somewhere, which would be plausible, I guess. Except they can't show up there, and then they'd have to, you know, I don't know. So the next question is who's next in order? Austria is next in order, and messing with Austria seems of some value. What happens if we give the Danes Munster? Okay. I don't know. Oh, we got a cardinal to kill. This is Spain that's killing a cardinal. We'll kill the Austrian one off. That's cool. I don't think this does anything else. You know, I've just been assuming that I know what these do without looking them up always. Yeah. Okay. Finally, we break the hearts of squares, and I'm going to start looking for them. Advisors die, no biggie there, but the Turks lose Mehmed IV. I could immediately replace him. I'm not sure I see much value in there not being an interregnum temporarily. Like, you don't want it at the end of the turn. You don't want it when you want to declare war, but it really doesn't hurt you right now that I'm aware of. Makes sense that the revolutionary, we may not be looking at a Turkish king. Over here we definitely have a king still, right? Philip V. He was the successor to that Cromwell thing, but there's just such chaos going on in Spain. I really want to think about that story again. What the hell's going on there? And that puts me to moving some money. And drawing military conscription. All players must choose, some more French Revolution stuff, and a revolutionary spread. Levy en masse, either lose a stability or pay 3 military to research mass conscription idea. If you have revolutionary regime idea, place a beep and gain a in an area adjacent by land to your realm. Ooh, so this is kind of like, I don't know, the Holland claims or whatever that the French sort of put forward, I guess. Decline reform. Pay 3 admin to gain a stability and remove 1 unrest, exhaust 3 things. So, you can't decline reform if you don't have admin cubes, which means everybody may be forced into this sort of big armies of the Napoleonic period. And most people kind of were over the course of a 20-year period or whatever. Interesting. No matter what, these take effect if nobody picks this. So that's kind of cool. Oh, and the world is changing rapidly here. The French Revolution feels like it's happening too early. This is the second quarter of that fourth deck. Again, it feels, by my calculations, right, the third quarter should be the 20 years or so that the Napoleonic Wars and its immediate aftermath take on. Which means the third quarter should be the French Revolution itself and maybe the American Revolution. So, you know, I mean, we're in the 7 Years' War era here. right? We're in the pre-American Revolution era here, and things feel like they're moving too quickly. Feels like all of these cards are showing up just a little too early. And that's a matter of the scenario doesn't seem like it's designed right? Because this stuff should be happening at the very end. But it may have been a decision of, well, if you don't do it, you don't get strong enough results to account for the French Revolution and everything. And maybe there's time compression, maybe it's not, It doesn't state that eras match certain times. I'm just doing calculations to make that happen, right? Because like the distortion of space, that it appears that any representation of the Napoleonic Wars would have to take, and really maybe some of the other wars as well, but certainly Napoleonic Wars, where there was rapid movement of armies across all of Europe, as opposed to more static situations that seem to fit the game better. So there's sort of this spatial distortion that I'm predicting, but there may also be a temporal distortion. And when you get to things like that, it makes it almost impossible to believe in the game, right? Like, you can keep a nice steady tie to time and space, and I will gripe about your ahistorical factors in the game system, and I will understand them. Once you start bending time and space, I kind of feel like I don't understand anything about the game anymore. And there have been a few games that I've had problems with that, where, like, I don't know. Things are very indeterminate. I realized I fucked up with England. They're about ready to do their big subjugation. I'm 1 cube short because I forgot about this. I had $3. I'm paying that $3 saying that I got that cube in time. This is, part of this is a matter of not being able to see what the fuck the country actually is. So the fact that I have to make new counters and everything is sort of the issue. So they are taking a vassal out of Portugal, and also if I didn't have to take this, but I think I do. Worse than that, forgot about this one over here. Oh, no, I was counting, I took that. Yeah, I got to take that as well. So that's going to be another $3. I'm going to have to take out a loan to cover that. But, I had the resources to do this. This was workable. So the Dutch would have been more advantageous for me in a lot of ways. One of which is that I have this continental presence thing, which doesn't help me, But for the power struggle, having a vassal all over Portugal is really appealing. So that's gonna help, I guess. And now I have a friendly port over there that's useful. I don't think that helps me with the mercantilism, or the trade company, sorry. No ship is required through any non-hostile distant sea zone that is faced by one or more of your ports. That's not really my port, that's a vassal's port, it's an allied port. But it does presumably help me. I don't know if I can navigate that, though. Because it's an independent country, I don't know if they'd share their rudders or whatever. And I don't remember what I've been making up as rules to cover that. But I got a whole bunch of pieces to put back. By destroying the Portuguese as an independent country, the Dutch now have enough pieces to cover all of the territory that they actually claim or own. This kind of vassalization represent? It may represent a dual monarchy. There's a marriage and an alliance. It may represent that the English crown held by, or that the Portuguese crown has been inherited by the English. Who do we have in charge here? Is it a George? No, it's still William. William, he has lived a long fucking time. But yeah, well, if there's one per deck, that's ugly. Somebody could live for 100 years very easily. If there's one per half deck, you could still push it to like 100-year reign, approximately. If it's one per deck, it's really ugly, but I think it's one per half deck. I hope. I don't know. I really don't know. But it's not necessarily random what order it's in. It's absolutely not random if you look at it. So I have desires to throw this randomness in, which would be skewed in the sense that it would possibly break the aging mechanism. But I think it's worse than that, because like the fact that he's this old, maybe I missed something, maybe not, but it really is causing issues here. Now you're talking about, I mean, he's had like a 70-year reign already, 60, 70 years, if my timing's right. Now, if this is the Napoleonic Wars, if time is distorted, he's had like over 100 years, you know, right? If he showed up when he was supposed to, he may have shown up early, which may be the issue here. He may seem like he's there too long. And then, you know, the game designers have built these scenarios so that they can apportion the death markers in the right thing. Now, if there's one in each half deck, then they're just apportioned, right? But it may be that there's one in each half deck, and there's one in each deck and replacement leaders in each deck, and that the expectation was that I would take George II, but because of when he came out, there was no reason to replace this guy, and this guy's better. So even if he's ill, I might not have taken a kind of iffy quality leader, and therefore I might defeat their little mechanism. I have no idea what I was doing with Austria. Now I know I had some thoughts if I could move the alliance out of the way, I could attack Holstein. But I don't have the army to fight. So there's this disputed succession, which if I move the alliance, I'm in somewhat decent shape for that, but I just don't fucking think I can take Venice on. Like I said, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It would take me multiple cubes. It would take me quite a bit to defeat Venice. I could probably get the Adriatic ports away from them, but then I have an enemy there that I want an ally with. And Brescia is the other thing I want from them, which is on the other side of their country, which makes that really, really tough to do. So I don't think I want to move in that direction. I have diplomatic cubes. However, other than the spy network, useful as it may be for, you know, if I want to disrupt somebody's, especially late in the game here, I need the advisor more. I'm left with kind of a, gosh. Oh, plus I used my event, so no, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm left with I don't know what the fuck to do. I can't make marriages. That's not something that's available. My money's low. Maybe I can do some trade. Could fabricate claims. That's not really going to help me. The only card that's out there is 7 Years' War. The next one, the Napoleonic Wars, I have to wait until a 7 Years' War gets triggered. I could shift cubes, or cube. What would 5 diplomacy, was there something valuable? Yeah, so 5 diplomacy would allow me to research something. I just don't know that that's that worthwhile, especially if I'm researching a trade operation. The bonus diplomats might be neat, but there's not that much game left, and I would be giving points to my main competitors as well as myself. I think I'll fiddle around with trade, I guess. Kind of lucky I drew one. It's not that likely for Austria to do so. I drew one that gave me $8 down there. And of course, nobody else gets anything because they don't have their merchants in this proper place. That's how I read that. And I retired some of my debt, but not all of it. My feeling there is I want cash on hand. I don't want to have to take out more debt if I have to do something. But there may be bad cards that I don't want to deal with, that if I'm close to bankruptcy, I just don't want to cope with. Poland, wow, this battery's dead too already. Jesus. Poland conducts, oops, need that. Their siege of Kaffa. They're done, basically. We move this back to the Turks. Things are getting interesting. I mean, I have such mixed feelings about this game, right? Because some of the things, like it's a fucking euro in so many ways, is just so disturbing to me. Where I feel like it's not adequately representing the historical situation. Just in terms of like, you know, things like bending space and time, okay. The not having enough cubes to operate and to do the historical stuff. Things like that are really, really bugging me. Some of them I feel like I can fiddle with, right? And things that I feel like I can fiddle with actually attract me more to a game. So the cubes thing, I actually feel like I could maybe give +1 of each type of cube to each player each turn. And that would kind of resolve everything. I don't think it's that much that it makes the unrest and everything completely meaningless, but it might make it so that it doesn't have as much impact as it should at some times. And that's kind of my worry with that kind of thing. Oh, our religious situation switched. Our religious situation switched. Right. So, you know, I trying to balance out, you know, those kind of things. The places where I'm like, this doesn't work like I think it should. Those are the kind of problems that I have with the old AWE games, where I feel like I can go in and tinker, and maybe I've failed all these times with them, but I still feel like I can. With things like La Révolution Française, Europa Universalis, La Grande Guerre, all of those, I feel like I can do a few things, and I may just be wrong, but I can do a few things and make the games work. However, the things I've tested don't. Right? Or I've been too shy to test certain things, and too lazy to keep going back to play them. So, you know, the first couple times I play one of these games, I'm like, am I sure that I understand what's wrong, right? Maybe I'm getting the rules wrong. So like with the cube manipulation, I'm thinking, well, maybe my early cube placement was such that it got me into a bad spiral. And, you know, in terms of like making sure I have advisors and stuff. Maybe some of the rules and strategic decisions I made screwed me up. So I feel like I need to play at least once more before I make any changes. And there's also things like there not being enough countermix to support the countries that really should be here. Again, I feel like I can tinker and fix that. I can build counters, whatever. But then when we get to some of the stuff, the event deck, the fact that it doesn't seem to cause the kind of things that I want. Now that may be a corollary of the cube shortages, and there not being enough fat to generate the wars that the event deck should be generating. Any kind of distortion of space and time is just, wow, I just throw my hands up. The game doesn't even make sense if I start thinking in those terms. Anyway, that's where I am. I think we are kind of coming to winding down the turn. There are some players with some cubes, though. Spain has a nice little pile of cubes. How the fuck did that happen? They had a lot of cubes to begin with, and then the revolutionary regime gave them the capability to crack down. The extra military cubes are a big deal because they allow you to do the terror, basically, and to get your country under control. And it isn't necessarily just the terror, right? It's the terror and then the aftermath under Napoleon, which was relaxing the terror, and everybody's like, oh, this is great, we're not being murdered anymore. All right. Okay, I'm relatively lost right now. It's been a week. It's Thursday. Obviously, Friday went dancing, Saturday recovery, Sunday a lot of raid, some internet outages that drove me crazy. Another one happened later on, but I started getting sick on Sunday, and I'm still sick, but functional now. I don't know, when I get colds, they really kind of wipe me out more than they should. And I'm left with almost no idea of what's going on. Nobody's passed yet. Looks like, I know that I was late in the turn. Got a lot of the events still left, but a lot of them have been played, 3 of them. And I'm on the Turkish turn. I'm going to give it a shot. By Thursday, it's like, 2 or 3 a.m. So I'm still on my Wednesday routine. But yeah, I started out thinking I was going to pass with the Turks. Bought myself an advisor, dropped a king down. Military conscription here, I can't play it. Will somebody else? Because if they could, there's just nothing good for me. Basically, I need to get a military cube, which I don't know where I'm going to get it. Because it's either lose... Oh, no. No, I could lose a stability, which I think I could do just fine. Okay. Yeah. Because it's lose, not pay. So yeah, I'm going to go... Well, no, the question is, do I want to get rid of these military cubes beforehand? If I raise an army up here, I can siege that town. So that actually doesn't sound like a bad choice. So yeah, I'm gonna build an army. Weak enough that I'm shaking. For the French, quelling unrest, I think is their best option because they have one over here. I'm really struggling, trying to work within the parameters of, gosh, I kind of know what I'm doing. I kind of remember some things in the game, like should always quell unrest and stuff. It's really hard to take in the full effects of the game. Again, I don't think there's an event I really wanted to do here. War of Succession. Poland is for some reason at war with something. Genoa. That's right. Because we took that down. Yeah. See, if there was a marriage over in one of these places that we cared about, that would be really useful. The imperial border conflict. It's Savoy that we need, and there's no marriage with Savoy. Savoy's now a Spanish vassal. So we can't really gain much out of that. And I don't want to just go to war. At one point it made sense to go to war to increase the size of your realm, to get more money and everything. Just on sort of general principles. Plus later in the game, power plays or struggles or whatever come into play. I'm going to just go with this. But I feel like I'm blundering at this point. Spain somehow or another made itself revolutionary. And it has new problems from that. we have our missionary capability, which I believe allows us to change the religion to the revolutionary. It works like any other religion, except, yeah, I mean, the fact that it works like any other, to me, means that I can use missionaries for that. So my goal was to use points to change over, and I've got a lot of places I need to change now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've only got 3 cubes over here. I don't have the power to do everything that I want it to. Couple of the areas I don't control everything in. In fact, I may not control everything here. Which means what? God. Oh, this is an admin action, I think. Convert area. That shouldn't be. That shouldn't be there. Okay. Because we got a red marker that says we're revolutionaries. Yeah, so that's going to be more expensive than the missionary actions. I'm able to shift 2 more cubes over and take a total of 3 missionary actions eventually. Right now, I want to force revolutionary actions on more places. So I'm going to drop this one in Naples. I might also do this one, but there's going to be some infectious results here because there's a revolutionary there. So I'm expecting the revolution to spread, although exactly where is kind of hard to calculate. This one will automatically have to spread there unless somebody else gets it, because there's player spaces next to it. This one, which I will plan on converting, would spread here because there's player places or here, again, for the same reasons. So we may be able to leverage the event card to cause additional stuff to happen. And likewise over here, we might. No, that's gonna spread elsewhere. But I want that to spread and start causing problems to other people with the revolutionary ideology. Spain has already taken their event. It's in a position where they didn't like 2 of the 3. Well, they didn't like any of the events, to tell you the truth. Disputed succession isn't going to do much for us, except control of all this shit. Military conscription, definitely not terribly helpful to us. We would actually rather not see that happen, because players can choose the levy en masse if they have the cubes for it. Spain does, so they might be able to do that. Turkey does not, so they would get the disadvantage. This is for the revolutionaries. Others can get part of this, which is research the mass conscription, which maybe we'd want. I don't know. I don't know what it does. It's an idea. Hold on. So, mass conscription idea. I'm going to suggest that that's probably military. Refresh 6 exhausted per military spent during replenish manpower. You cannot research serfdom. You refresh all and gain some unrest. You lose serfdom. And you lose stability unless you're revolutionary. We definitely don't want to do that right now. And I don't think we want to fire it off anyway, because someone gets an advantage out of it, someone who can't trigger it. Corruption on the colonies, which sounds horrible to us, gives us a couple of bucks. Because we don't know what the next one's going to be, you know. It gives us a couple of bucks and can discard one of our advisors. I have none, bonus. Either add unrest to half your distant colonies or pay 3 to add only to 1. Well, I don't have a whole lot of distant colonies right now. I only have 2. And no matter what, I was going to get hit with one of them. Now we work on other players who have distant colonies. Turkey has not managed one yet. So France and then Spain have to make their choices here. So for France, discard an advisor, ugh. I don't have any backups. Square and triangle. Circle is going to die. That doesn't help. Or we could look the other way and lose 2 victory points and pay a little bit of money, a couple of bucks. I think we'll take that penalty. I don't know. Victory points are expensive, though. Losing an advisor would suck. But, you know, it's an old advisor. Let's take the loss. And I know I'm being really, really slow again. You know, this is the effect of being away so long. It's hard to make these decisions. So I lose an advisor. Either way, we're going to lose. We're going to get a thing on our distant colonies, and we're not going to pay anything. We'll just take the one hit that we get, which sucks, but we can. If we hadn't done this, if we had picked this instead of the British letting the British pick it, we could have been immune because we already had unrest. That brings us to Spain, who has 3 distant colonies. That would mean 2 hits. And again, it's not distant colonies, it's distant towns or whatever. So Spain's choices are discard an advisor. I don't have a circle. I don't have the 3 admins, so I don't want to do that. Really don't want to lose victory points at this point in the game, although maybe it doesn't matter too much for Spain. They're kind of in that 3rd position or 4th position, and it looks like they're kind of far and away from either side of it. But I can discard a... Do I have advisor backups? I only have admin advisors to back me up. I could discard this. It's only a 1. A lot of cubes there. But then I'd take 2 unrest. Whereas here, I'd pay $2. It's kind of the thing, plus the victory points. I'm going to take the victory point hit. Add this to one of my distant areas. We'll do Virginia because it's the less important of them. And then the tax value is 3, so I lose $2. And then we take the secondary effects. Oh, God. I don't feel well. All right. The secondary effects are, first, unrest, rebellion. Everybody has to roll dice, but the English roll a maximum of 1. I guess the big effects, Poland let Bohemia go. We're out of cubes. There's not much Poland can do anymore, and there's a huge army besieging Bohemia. So we didn't even re-roll on that. And we actually ended up with an extra re-roll, but that'll cause this to spread or start decreasing, whereas a siege wouldn't cause either to happen. And Spain lost this, which is now a religious issue because that's I don't know, I got that marked as Orthodox. What does that fucking mean? Fuck. I think that means counter-reform. I know I did that recently, but this is not counter-reform. Oh, this truly is. This can't be Orthodox. Are those rebellion areas? I don't fucking remember what I put the Orthodox markers for. Like, I've got an Orthodox marker on an Orthodox space, which doesn't make sense. I don't know what that is. That can't be right. It should be Muslim. Or it was Muslim. Has it converted to revolutionary and I didn't have enough revolutionary markers? In which case, I think that's actually... See, I think this is counter-reform. Because I'm out of counter-reform. Or I was. Am I still? I don't know. Again, you know... If I hadn't walked away, I would remember these things. This just happened, so I'm like, I don't fucking know what that's supposed to be. I really don't. Like, I feel like it was supposed to be counter-reform. I don't know what this was flipped over for then, under those conditions. It just doesn't make sense. Was I short on revolutionary markers? I don't think I was, but I don't know. I really don't know. I'll leave it as this stands with that being counter-reform. Okay. So yeah, and now I have to deal. Oh, I dealt with that. Now I've got piracy, and this is controlled by the English as well, which is place a pirate ship into a maritime node of your choice with at least one merchant in it. Okay. Turkey is probably our best choice here. We'll put this down here just to create more fuckage. Reveals the last of the events, which is the Grand Coalition. Boy, does this sound like Napoleonic. It's an X. It could have been an either. You gain 3 victory points and 4 military, and must name a rival among your opponents. All other players must side with you or the rival, or lose 5 victory points. By joining a side, players will gain military equal to the current number of players on the other side. And order is important here. Remove all alliances and truces between players on opposite sides. You must then declare war on the designated rival. All players must join their chosen side in the war. Yeah, this is the Napoleonic Wars. Wow. I need to look at the scenario. Did I put this in the wrong deck? This is 455B. I'll leave it where it is, but 455B should be in the first half. The Grand Coalition. Well, that's fucked up. But yeah, that's a powerful choice for someone, and that Grand Coalition is probably going to be against the Turks, if anyone has anything to say about it. Who has something to say about it? Well, here's the problem. Poland would love to create a Grand Coalition against the Turks, but they have no cubes left. They can't go to war. Who else is left? The only other person who could pick this is France. France has a couple of military cubes. They obviously can't go to war with Turkey. Would they want to fire off a grand coalition you know, the only person ahead of them that they can kind of pull down is Spain. Kind of feels like we're just not going to have it. And in part, that's because it's showing up in the wrong fucking deck as far as I'm concerned. We're not through. I mean, maybe this is the 7 Years' War. I don't know. Is that when the Grand Coalition was? I want to look it up now. Looking the term up didn't help much. First of all, the first thing that came up was parliamentary coalitions. Okay. And a whole bunch of different cases where that phrase was used, or term was used in turn. Tried looking 18th century. I saw no references for either Austrian succession or 7 Years' War talking about the Grand Coalition. There's the Grand Alliance, but that's early in the century. That's the like Queen Anne's War and stuff like that. Oh God, Marlborough stuff. And then there's a great coalition for the Napoleonic Wars being referenced. The term seems more appropriate for the Napoleonic Wars, and the card certainly seems to fit that more. Because when you think about it in truth, sure, the 7 Years' War drew a lot of people in, as did the War of Austrian Succession. But not everyone. Not everyone was involved. Now, everyone here. Britain and France, obviously. Spain, I'm having trouble thinking of Spain being terribly involved in it. If they were probably anti-English, being the Bourbon connection and what happened later on. Turkey certainly wouldn't be in an alliance of that sort, but they were persistently anti-Austrian, so you could kind of throw them in no matter what. Poland, no. I mean, by this point, Poland doesn't exist, basically. I mean, there's still a country of Poland, but the Russian troops had free access through it, and it doesn't exist as a real nation at this point. And by the time of the Napoleonic Wars, it's just gone. But in the Napoleonic Wars, I feel like almost everyone, well, everyone mentioned, including Russia, is involved. How much Turkey, particularly allied with other people? No, not so much. But there were Turkish-Russian wars, and there was the possibility of Turkish-Austrian wars. So I can definitely buy that more. Turkey's always sort of an edge case. I think we're going to run into more and more problems because Poland hasn't been disposed of, and there, you know, I mean, something should have started to happen to Poland here. Maybe they're Russian cards, I don't know. Maybe they're cards for other scenarios because, hey, we don't want to make Poland like do what it did historically because there's a player in it. Well, that's a fault of the system, man. The scenario should not be set up so that Poland is, you know, unable to follow its historical path at all. And I'm very troubled by that. Anyway, but that trouble I've already talked about. We're going to try to push through the next 3 players. At least get something in. Maybe tomorrow I'll be able to play a little bit more. I don't know. But the game has really taken a nosedive, you know, in terms of my capabilities. Or I've taken a nosedive in terms of the game, just because being away from it for a week, which is a serious factor. If you think about, if you wanted to play the grand campaign of this and play it, you know, on a once a week basis where maybe, you know, it takes you a month or 2 to get through it, it would be very difficult to come back to in a way that I don't think the original game would. Certainly I've played games of Empires in Arms, which is a simpler game, but where I'm not left with that same kind of, what the fuck is going on, you know, type of, what are we doing? How does this system work? Now, some of that may just be the Euro nature of it, you know, in my mind, just not accepting the way it operates. But I don't think I'm alone in that kind of feeling of not being able to like really get a concrete feel for what's going on when I'm looking at cubes and, you know, trying to manage cubes rather than simply, hey, let's make sure my economy is good and, you know, make my diplomatic agreements and whatnot. Here, it's all about like this optimization of cards and cubes and stuff, and it's just very hard to settle into your brain what the fuck you're doing. I don't know if I had goals with Austria, but I can't figure any out that'll work. I don't know. Am I able to improve this? I don't know. Increase imperial authority, 1 plus current value. That would cost me more than if I reorged, so I can't get myself to that 6 where I would get points. So I went with a pass, put down a couple of advisors, get me some good cubage next turn, and cleared out my debt. Now, one of my guys is going to age, but what can you do? You know? Do I have any advantages towards that? No. It's the papal curia that gives me advantages, and I had no way to get a dude. Poland's out of everything, so they will look. Piles of money for a disputed succession. Grand Coalition is just a bad idea. This is weird because all other sides must side with a rival. You must then declare war on the designated rival. All players must join their chosen side in the war. I don't know what that means if you're forced to be at peace because you passed already. Somebody might be able, like, depending on how you interpret that, can you just join a coalition and not play? Does it violate the peace rules? You know, can you go to war? Or are you forced to take a huge victory point loss because you're not going to war? I don't know. Disputed succession comes with a lot of money. Do I have any royal marriages next to me? Comes with a couple of cubes. I could maybe take something out if there's a marriage near me, but there kind of isn't. Declaring war on somebody I can't reach isn't good. It's actually very bad. Probably worse than the money involved. So, I don't want to do this. Doesn't have to be my marriage, but there's no marriages near me. The money's not worth it, especially at this point in the game. Military conscription. I could decline it. Doesn't sound bad. Like, it's the least bad of all the solutions, I think. So we'll take that. Because obviously the person firing off the Grand Coalition is going to have to declare war. You must then declare war on the designated rival. I assume it's free, but I don't know. You know, I'd get a whole bunch of cubes, and I could violate the truce. Hold on. Maybe I don't want the one I just picked. How much money did I get? Wasn't much. It was this $2. Let's take a look at this. You gain 3 victory points and 4 military, and must name a rival among your opponents. All the players must side with you or the rival, or lose 5 victory points. By joining a side, players will gain military equal to the current number of players on the other side. I think, again, that's at the time of the declaration. and the person being picked on doesn't get any? I don't know. Remove all alliances and truces between players on opposite sides. You must then declare war on your designated rival. All players must choose. Yeah, I think we'll go for this. I guess. Wow, this changes a lot. We get 1, 2, 3 victory points. Who are we choosing as our rival? We'll choose Poland, or Turkey, of course. We gain 4 military cubes. We even have an army on the board. Have a little town in trouble? Have a big town in trouble, little town in trouble. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We choose Turkey as our rival. Now all other players have to choose, have to side with either me or the rival or lose 5. By joining a side, players will gain military equal to the current number of players on the other side. Okay. Well, I don't know what would have happened if Turkey had passed. Could they be the rival? Can you declare war on them? Are there any restrictions? I don't know. I really don't know. War is triggered. A deal is not marked as a declare war action. Only follow 3 to 7. PRs must adhere to all DOW restrictions unless stated otherwise. It doesn't say. If that target is ineligible, no DOW is made. So yeah, I guess if you pass, here, it keeps going. A PR that has passed cannot declare war via an event, and if instructed to do so, even if instructed to do so. Okay. If the aggressor is so I guess you could gain the advantages without ending up in war. Okay, so what happens? All other players must side with you or the rival. Well, Turkey's already engaged. They don't get anything out of it, and they're stuck in a war because they didn't pass. France. Do we want to be... so here's the weird thing. If we declare ourselves anti-Poland, we can fight the Poles. Well, that doesn't really help us. So we'll go anti-Turkish. That gets us a military cube. And I'm gonna move a war marker over here to remind me. Spain is still in play. They will clearly go anti-Turkish. They have no interest in fighting Poland, that's for sure. So they end up in the anti... Even though they're revolutionary as well. England. Now, England could join Turkey with the thought of, I get a whole bunch of military cubes and I could engage in war with Spain and or France. Or they could take the easier route and say, Turkey's likely to lose the war against the Poles because they have nothing going for them. And this is a hard call. Is there anything I could gain from a war with Spain? And France, for that matter. And that's where it gets hard, because I could get a bunch of military cubes and actually do something, or I could just count on, well, I need those cubes to put down unrest, so I too am going to declare war on the Turks. The other outcomes sound more painful, and I don't know that there's much I could gain from them. Although, you know, if I could grab Spanish territories here and there, that would be really, really valuable. But, and there is an English army in place. There's a Spanish army too, but it's way over there. I mean, clearly the more exciting option would be to go after Spain. And we're so far behind. We'll go to war with the Poles. That gets us 3 cubes. Screw it, man. There are things we have to gain from fighting against some of these countries. I don't know how much I like it, but that puts me to Austria. Austria can choose whatever they like because they're unaffected. They passed already. However, they are going to lose any alliances and truces between players on opposing sides. Austria will declare in favor of Poland, just they're anti-Turkey. And that has taken care of everyone. Oh, Austria declared in favor of, oh no, actually Austria will declare in favor of Turkey, not against, because that way we get more military cubes. But we're not involved in the war. Okay. Now, remove all alliances and truces between players on opposing sides. So, Spain and Poland, put a Polish one here, Spanish one, I don't know, are no longer at truce. Turkey is now at war with Spain. We'll mark that down. Austria is declared in favor of Turkey so they don't lose their truce. It doesn't matter. There's no effect there. Poland is now at war with Turkey. Look at the Poles. This is crazy. Keep looking. England went to war with Poland. We got a lot of these little things to mark down. England's at war with Poland. That means Poland's at war with England. England is also at war with France and Spain. You think these are not limited if it's an issue? It won't be in this case, but and this is probably as big a case as we've got, which brings France and Spain at war with England. Oh, this is not going to be that impressive a war because nobody has very many cubes left, but some people have gained a fair amount by declaring the war. Okay, so is there anyone left that we haven't accounted for? France should be at war with Turkey, which they are not yet. That's right, I haven't moved their thing. Okay. And that looks like about it. So it's basically Turkey and England against France, Spain, and Poland. You must then declare war on the designated rival. All players must join in the chosen sides in the war. That just happened. Poland's not going to call any allies because it costs them. But Turkey, if they have any allies, which I don't think they do anymore, would be able to call for free. That would be a losing proposition for the ally. Other players, I'm not sure what their deal is. They're being brought in as part of a casus belli. Are they able to bring anything in? I don't know. Sending a CTA. One of the main rounds is the call to arms action. Well, this is going to leave a mess for the next time I make it up here. Okay, call to arms. This action is only your declaration of war on you or an ally. When you're the aggressor in a war, the CTAs are offensive. You may also send them when accepting a CTA from an NPR ally. So, this is what's weird. I mean, Poland's the aggressor in this war, I guess. They declared war. So Turkey is receiving it. They would have the ability to call their allies for free. What about anybody else? You know, is France or Spain considered aggressors because they're allied with, they're being called in as part of a coalition? I don't fucking know. Well, I'm going to ignore the problem completely. Basically, England has no allies, so that's fine. Well, no, they do. Fuck. England has 2 allies. They are not able to activate them, however. Well, they could activate this one because it's adjacent to both France and Spain. That would get me 1 allied unit. It would put me at risk, though. I think I'm better off not taking that risk. France and Spain. Spain has an alliance up here with Ferrara. Again, I don't know if they would be being pulled. I don't know if that would cost cubes because I don't know if they're counted as part of the aggressor. And where that sending a CTA is a benefit of alliance. It's this minor action. This is what we went and looked up at. When you declare war or someone declares war on you, you get to send one. You may receive a CTA when someone declares war on your ally or your ally declares war on another realm. Yeah. I feel like this is a fuzzy area that doesn't really exist. So if we look here, which isn't what we're doing really, we're looking at a declaration of war by event, but it sort of is. This doesn't have the sequence. The sequence is here under the action. Call to arms. You may send offensive using this. If the target is an HRE, the Emperor receives a defensive CTA. Targeted NPR automatically send. Targeted PRs may send defensive CTAs using call to arms. Targeted PRs and PRs accepting defensive CTAs from NPRs gain a military. I don't think I've been remembering that. But that's not covered here, although maybe Turkey should get one through the entry rules here. All other players on the side, by joining a side, players will gain military equal to the current number of players on the other side. Of course, then does Poland also get one? I don't know. I'm left unable to make a decision here. So I'm going to fucking ignore the problem. But it feels to me like minor allies of people called in should be able to join the war, but there doesn't seem to be a mechanism that says that they can. But maybe there is, but I don't know if they have to pay or not. So fuck it. Okay, now we get the attrition. Everyone who's at war, except for Poland, has to remove a land unit for every 4 deployed units they have. I'll do that. And there's an expansion, and it looks like, I can't really see, blue and pink, controlled by the Poles. Well, blue is easy. It's over here. We got any blues left? Not really. Where do we want to squeeze this? Kind of doesn't matter. I don't know. And then pink. Where do the Poles want pink to go? We're out of pink replacements as well as pink pieces. So I pushed the Danes over here to the Gold Coast because that's a really dicky thing to do. And I know it's dicky. So, well, I don't know. Maybe it's easier to go to war with Denmark, but France and Denmark don't look like they're going to be able to go to war very easily. And now we're set for one hell of a weird short war. Where everybody's going to be ganging up. Well, where Poland's going to try to take out Turkey and do what damage they can, take what they can from them. And England is probably going to ignore Poland. They're probably going to focus on Spain. That's where they have their interest. I don't know if I have the card for it available right now. Yeah, the continental possessions. Netherlands, Flanders, and Wallonia. Yeah. None of the 7 Years' War specific stuff is showing up as being particularly viable to attack. But what it is that's interesting, and the colonial territory is interesting. Now, what can Spain do about that? And what can Spain do about that to prevent from losing a war? So Spain could build an army, and then they won't lose the war, right? I believe the only way you can get status quo keep current board state, you have to have at least a partial victory. And a partial victory means that you have to have 2-to-1 odds on the enemy in terms of total troops, which means, you know, right now, England's got 3 units, Spain's got 3 units. Spain's got a much bigger force pool, doesn't have debt. I think the Spanish can win this war. I think England joined the wrong side. Too bad. You know. Maybe they get lucky, you know. Fighting up here, there's a Spanish unit there. Now, this declaration of war, I don't know if it clears cubes out and who it would clear them from. I know under normal declarations of war, the realm loses the cubes, but I don't think that's the case over just, you know, an event-based war. Anyway. That's it. Wasn't expecting anything like this chaos to be coming forward yet. What you can see, though, is that my battery is not charging. Yeah, this is a useful use of video time. Fucking hell. Hit it hard enough, it works. Gotta be careful, that thing is fragile. But like with some of the discussions Kallismar and I have had, and like some notes through that I've seen about the game, it is not easy at the very least. Maybe there are answers in the rulebook. It's not easy to resolve them. Now, I have to say, the original EU was worse in this regard. There's no question of that. I feel like the original EU had to be played with someone who just said, you know what, I'm giving you what the rules are, and I'm going to make the decision on them. I don't feel, and, you know, if you have a group of people who are all familiar, maybe it's different. Games like Empires in Arms, probably closer to this, where it's like, wow, you can interpret this multiple ways, and you really have to read the shit out of the rules and you know, essentially treat them as a study in rules lawyering to be able to come up with how it's actually supposed to be handled. I think this may be, Empires in Arms has definite ambiguities. I'm not absolutely certain this one does, but it's going to be a hellish job at the very least to find out, you know, what the correct interpretation is. And it's not the only game that I have of this nature. It just feels very funny to be facing a Euro-style game that is this problematic in terms of the rules. However, it feels absolutely correct that a game that is on this scope has this much trouble. But when you start looking at the cards and you're like, well, how does that interact? You know, what does it mean? I've had it as a question in my head all along, though, that I have not been able to resolve as to this general issue of what happens if you are called into an alliance and have further allies you could call? What is the impact of that? And, you know, this just highlighted something that I've not had an answer to throughout the course of the game. Are you an aggressor or are you not? You know, are you automatically an aggressor? You could argue so many different ways for this, and I do not see it in the rules. But then again, I also am just not willing to put the kind of rules lawyering effort to try to read the rules and come to some kind of absolute conclusion. Well, not so hot. Just got over a coughing spasm. Let's have another one. This tends to happen after my colds. I get a bad cough. I had real problems when I was young. Probably pleurisy or something. My first girlfriend had pleurisy when she was young, so that sticks in my head. But, you know, I get these really bad coughs that last for a month or so every time I get a cold. But I'm not that unwell, right? However, here it is, Friday, well, actually probably Saturday morning at this point, and I've failed to go dancing tonight. This is the first time in quite a while. Usually I have to be on death's door, which, you know, maybe early in the week I was far enough gone that I wouldn't have been able to. But I certainly would have today. But I slept too late, and it's because of my addictions. And I woke up at like, 7:45. I might have been able to make it if I just rushed out the door. But the thought of, the fact that would screw up me not being able to get my addiction in at all. And today's, I don't know, every day is important, right? Usually I wake up by 5 and I'm out the door around 6:30 or so. I couldn't do that. It would have had to have been right out the door, and I did not. So I missed dancing. And, I would have considered it anyway, given how my sleep schedule was. But my favorite DJ was playing tonight. So, and she's only there like, once a month or so. And I try to make it, I almost always make it anyway. So, but with her, it's a special case because she plays different stuff than I'm used to. All right. Well, what it does mean is I can try to push through another round or so while I have Raid playing in the background. I've given a couple of people responses with the link to my Raid thing if people want to give it a shot. It is a horrible game. There's nothing good about it. Don't think that I endorse it in any way. It's fucking horrible. It's just addictive. All right, onward. We're on the Turks, who have not yet passed, but look like they're pretty fucking close. However, they're at war, which sucks. This is like the worst way you can be in a war. You're like tapped out for the turn and somebody gets you. And I really don't have shit that I can do about it. I could build an army or something, but then I have no functional capability with that army. Now, I probably fucked something up. Who declared war on them? I think it was the Poles initially. Declaration of war comes with some things that I did not do. that since this just happened, maybe I should go back to and do. Okay, so the declaration of war functionality allows me to march in to do a movement or to do a build action, which will save me a cube that I need. So let's take a look back at that, because that's what I failed at. Poland is not going to be able to move fast enough to do anything too fancy. I could send a ship out and hope to win a battle here, and that would give me a cube. Now, is this correct? So this is the whole problem. So the Grand Coalition, yeah, I can't believe I'm remembering this, is you must then declare war on the designated rival. Yeah. But that declaration of war is paid for, etc. And I don't think that it actually, yeah, I don't think I get anything for that cube. So let's go back to where we were. Because I didn't have to pay a cube to declare war or anything like that. I did not take the declaration of war action, which is where that subsequent, being able to build and whatnot comes into play. However, the event is listed here. The being able to make calls to arm and everything is also under the, not the event, under the action of 16. So now we look at the event. Maybe the event clarifies things. War is triggered. Follow steps 3 through 7 of declare war. Okay, so it does spell it out. And now we flip back here and we look 3 through 7. Okay, so this is where the free activation comes, is in 8. I do not get that. It's specified, it's clear, it's good. So now on to the Turks, which is where we were a moment ago. This is the kind of cross-referencing you have to do, right, to understand what the hell things are going to be. And I mean, some of that just has to do with like using cards. And I have this kind of problem with a lot of games with cards. But this one, because it's a complex enough game underlying it, there's a fair amount of effort made to trace things back through the rules. And I don't think there's an easier way to do that. Some of it may be the presentation of the rules, but honestly, I think once you've made the decision to start putting things on cards, you make life harder in terms of being able to decipher what the rules are. We saw this kind of action with that Times of War. Fuck, no, I just bumped something. And maybe even the Wars of Religion, but the Time of Wars, which, unlike, the game that it's based on, which was Here I Stand, really, I found myself constantly having to look up the interactions, because, again, it tried to put a more complex structure and lots of special rules that the cards led into. That one was much more troublesome because a lot of times the rules just really, like, you'd look at how they were written and say, they can't mean that. And every fucking time that I've seen, and I would judge them by how the rules were written, because I'm like, well, it's how it's written. How else can I interpret that? Every single time that I was looking at that, and I was really following it early on after I did my videos, because a lot of people had the same kind of questions I did, the designer responded back in a way that supported exactly how the textual reading was. So, but that one left huge questions in mind, just because they seemed so counterintuitive. Here it's not so much counterintuitive, it's like, I don't even know what things represent, like cubes and stuff, right? It's very hard to get a grasp on what the designer really means with it, and there aren't notes at the end that really define that would help understand, hey, what was the design process that led to these cubes? What do they represent? And it probably wouldn't help, because it probably would be there's some kind of amorphous thing. I mean, I just don't see an answer except build troops, maybe. Build troops doesn't seem like a bad answer. It'll prevent me from losing wars. I can take a victory point penalty for that. So, what do we got? Well, we don't have a whole hell of a lot. Do we want to put troops closer to the poles is one issue. Like, do we want to try to defend this or something? Poland has no real interest in any of that shit. But, you know, whatever. And they can't take this. This is my capital. But they could actually force me to become, like, Catholic or something. Wow. Imagine that. That wouldn't last long. Okay. So I think I just put more troops into where I am. And honestly, I don't think there's any need for artillery. There might be a useful point to be made for building a cav. Not much, because I don't expect to actually get into a fight here. Excuse me. This has happened before in some of my videos, and it lasts for so long, I don't know. There's nothing I can really do except plug on or else give up playing. All right, so this would be 9 if I built a cav, or just 6 otherwise. I'm low enough on cash, and I don't think I'm going to be actually fighting a battle. I'm basically building these troops just to avoid losing a war, and maybe instead we can come to a negotiated peace. I missed something, at least, in the declaration of war step, which is, and I think this may be the only case, there are shared navies here. That's a French navy, not a pirate ship. I, again, don't know if those cubes are supposed to disappear. Remove all cubes in each of the targeted realms areas. But again, this is a declaration of war. It feels like an offensive thing. Everybody else was drawn in without that. So if these cubes went away, then these would go away too. I'm just going to leave them where they are. I feel like we've sort of blundered into a war. I don't think that's that big a deal. Cubes in someone else's area aren't terribly useful anyway. So we have a naval battle there. Now, I don't think there's shit that affects naval combat. I can't see anything that does. And neither, well, I guess either side could create a navy, but we're not going to do that. So the French went before the English, so I'll roll them first. They get a hit. I mean, it's very likely these two ships just destroy each other and they get a hit, yeah. So the French Navy goes away. The English Navy goes away. That's a long throw that I don't trust myself to make. Some days I might. Excuse me. God damn. All right. Now, the French are at war with England and Turkey. We don't really give a shit about Turkey. We have 3 military aspects on us. We have the ability to call an event in play. Military conscription, we'd have to pay a bunch of military cubes or lose stability, which would lose us 2. So we want to use our cubes before we get this reaction back. I think the best thing to do, I don't think there's much that we hope to gain off of a war with England particularly. So I think the best thing to do, quite simply, is just resolve this unrest here. We got these extra cubes for that. And move on to Spain. I mean, everybody's at war now, except for Austria, who had passed already. And was actually not badly set for it. They have a fair amount of cubes. I don't know why they passed. Did they get any from the card? Maybe. It would have been like 3. But I think that's only if you went to war. I find it really odd that they have so many cubes sitting there. But they were prevented from getting into a war somehow. I don't know that they wanted to do. By joining a side, you gain cubes. Okay, so they got cubes without going to war, which is really bonus. Like, they were already passed and they got additional cubes. It's been a couple of days, basically, so, you know. Well, about 1. And now we're on to the Spaniards. And yeah, this is the kind of busy work that I'm constantly doing as I take a turn. I got to think about Spain, and I got to check raid. What's up? I don't hear any fighting going on. Spain has a couple of problems. One is, our plan was to convert these revolutionary areas that are near us. And that's 2 cubes from here. We don't have another development, do we? With central authority. We do not. Which we could get by a shift. And that could be these 2, but then that takes this out of my hands, and that's kind of a problematic area. But that was my plan, was to cut off this from going revolutionary. I could probably handle one area that's a different religion from mine. And please note, we turned the Dutch counter-reformed. And this, I've decided, is counter-reformed. This probably was revolutionary, but fuck it. I should have had more revolutionary counters, so I don't really know. It certainly was not orthodox, and it was not counter-reform. So it was either a flipped counter, which is really unlikely, or it had been revolutionary and I did it wrong, but I don't know. Maybe I was completely out at one point, but I think I would have used something else, because this, I'm pretty sure, was counter-reform. Okay. Again, it's because they don't give me enough counters. So Spain has this issue where they have this desire to convert areas, which I may make my main goal, but it would also be useful to build troops and to suppress some of the unrest. Of course, got the potential problem of a war with the English, because they did declare war on me. Why did they do so? Well, they got more cubes out of it, but I'm not really sure what they're going to use their cubes for, and I'm not sure how I'm going to defend myself. Which means that I may wish to build an army before I do my shift over, and I think I'll do that. I have a fair amount of cash, at least. Built a new army, which I'm going to put here in Leon. That's probably the wisest place. And that puts us next to Portugal, which we could actually invade if we so desired. We've built up a fair amount of forces across the board. And I moved the ship to the English. I got to go back downstairs. But, you know, it's funny with these colds, because what happens is I have, you know, really horrible drainage going on in the early period of the cold, where I'm just, either my nose stops working completely because it, like, sort of solidly freezes up, or more likely, it's just draining, you know, so much that I'm getting sick, you know, my stomach's getting sick off of it. Right now, I feel perfectly fine. Maybe a little weak, maybe a little, I don't know. My brain feels a little fuzzy sometimes, but and I feel hungry, but that's because I eat too much when I'm sick. And but now I've got like big nasty wads of snot going down my throat still, but I can hawk them up and get rid of them. It's not like the constant stream that's just so bad that like I can't stop it. Blowing my nose doesn't really help. I'm just so miserable. And it's at this point where the cough sets in. And it's just kind of weird. It's like, obviously, I'm not well, but I don't know. Anyway, on to the English after I go downstairs. English spend a cube and $10, all of it debt, to build up their army. Replace my general. I don't know. William III still alive. Wow, and he started out with one. Ho ho ho. I wonder if I fucked up there. My other leaders are not as good. I might actually want to pay a cube to get a general. It's just so much easier to just throw your king in, though. Which feels absolutely ridiculous. Like, it feels like throwing your king into a battle, into war, especially at this point in the world, is has a much greater cost than assigning a general. And see, this is where the games diverge again. And I don't know where the video game went with this, but in the original EU, you had a pool of generals. They were a fairly, no matter what, you had a fair number of generals for any country. Maybe 2 generals and an admiral at kind of the lowest end of things. For France, when it's, at its height in the Sun King or whatever, they have like 6 generals and 3 admirals or something, all named. If you went below your country's minimums, which, again, for the weakest countries might be like 2-1, the most is probably like 3-3 or something like that, 3 generals, 3 admirals. If you went below that, if you didn't have enough named or if you lost some or whatever, you got random generals to replace them. And that pretty much was what how many armies, how many forces you could really put in the field. Because without a general, like here, it kind of sucks. You want those extra dice, whatever. In the original game, you needed the generalship. You needed the modifiers for generalship on the combat tables. It was probably more important in the original game. But here it's like, wow, getting a general means I give up a campaign. There was nothing like that. Nothing like that. You didn't have to pay for your generals. The only exception to that was there would be a pool of mercenary generals, some random number that was generated. I think it was like between 1 and 4 a turn. And players could bid on them. And generally, if somebody had like really no leaders or way too many armies, was the only time you'd see anybody get any, except for Wallenstein, which is a special case. The Austrians just get him. I don't know why he's not an Austrian leader. He seems to act just like one in the game. But they may have to pay a point for whatever. But you could pay a small amount of money, usually, to get yourself an additional general if you really needed it. But there was never a case where, like, wow, it's either a choice of having, better generals or being able to do more. In fact, it's the opposite. If you have the better generals, I don't know. It just pisses me off. It pisses me off because I'm drawing from this cube collection, which is something I don't really understand and I don't really like. And it feels just too limiting in ways that I can't justify, right? Anyway, what it means is the royal presence is going to be on the board a lot more than historically was reasonable. Because, yeah, you want those dice more, and it's better than the advantage is better than the chance of him dying or whatever. And if he dies, I can put another royal down for free. That doesn't cost me anything. But it costs me a military campaign, essentially. You know, one of them $10 turns in the game. Now, it's a minor action, so it just costs the cubes. So if I have a huge quantity of cubes, which nobody does, of course, because all the fat burned off, and you're limited to 10, right? Quelling unrest can cost you a huge amount of cubes all at once in one round, and is quite often an activity that you need to do. So it's just, you know, it's a matter of, it's costing you something that kind of doesn't make sense, when what it really represents is, wow, there was like this military establishment and tradition that's training the leaders, that's getting them up to speed, whatever. That's represented in the other game as a fixed quantity, right? You know, oh, it's 1700, I have Marlboro, you know? I like the fact that it's not fixed people. What I don't like is that instead of like some fixed establishment, some kind of, what I seem to remember in the computer game, but I may be thinking to an earlier version, not the original versions, but maybe version 3 or whatever. What I seem to remember it treated it as was, you built buildings and they kind of gave you leaders, right? That would fit in very nicely with the Euro concept of the game, to have cards out there or something out there, resources that just continuously gave you something. Here, I mean, yes, you're continuously getting something, but the thing you're paying doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that, at least to me, that the ability to raise troops, which costs a cube, the ability to conduct a campaign, which costs a cube, is taking away from my leadership pool. That leadership pool is something that was invested in over years. Of course, it's really hard to tell because, again, we're talking like, what, 20 years per round of, and yeah, it just, the original fit and the computer game fit much, much better to your conception of like what's actually happening everywhere. You know, I say, well, the military is not really making much sense. But yeah, honestly, the government's not making sense the way it did in either of the other versions, the other treatments of the system. Now, again, it doesn't mean I hate this game. But it does like stand out and say, wow, I'm not grasping it. I'm not grasping what the design, you know, choices were here. They don't make sense to me. Now I'm stuck with a tricky problem. So much of the game feels like I'm saying that kind of thing. I'm on Poland, Austria passed, remember. I can't reach Turkish territory by walking. I could do a naval move this out, and get like 3 ships into some place on Turkey. Interesting, right? Maybe I could conquer their capital. What am I looking for here? What do I have left? I have Break the Rust, that's not it. House of Vasa, that's not going to help. Okay, so I've got no missions to work for except Black Sea ports, which I'm going to get anyway. So I'm kind of done with missions. Our man on the throne. Secure desired succession. I think that requires there be a succession crisis. I was hoping for the religious conversion one. Let's take a look here. And I know I'm bumbling around, you know, the locations. Yeah, there would have to be a marriage issue to do that at all. So I'm trying to figure out what I might want to do. I really like the idea of like forcing the Ottomans to become Catholic or counter-reform Catholic. That would go along so well with like everything else that's fucking happening in this game, right? With the Pope being Protestant, or at least the Papal States being Protestant. I highly doubt the Pope is. He's not acting Protestant. He's kicking everybody out who's not Catholic. Another thing I could do is I could just march in. I could build some more troops, but I don't really think I need more. However, if I built troops, I could build another navy and then do a naval move and be able to invade. I think I'm just going to march. Now, wait a minute. I have a problem. Oh, fuck, man. I have Bohemia. Maybe the bigger thing to do would be to attack Bohemia. But now the Polish army, or the Turkish army has gotten big. 5, 6, 2, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to beat the Turks with a partial victory, even, right? Because partial victory requires that you have 2 to 1, which means we go to an inconclusive result. Now, if I take something important enough, that would be worthwhile. But maybe my better move is build an army and deal with some of these rebel situations that I'm facing. How about that? And then we could just, well, white peace isn't so hot, right? White peace, wow, do we get that automatically if we're not in each other? Yeah. So a negotiated peace, which could be the effect of a white peace, or pretty close to it, might be wise. So it might be a good idea for me to get into Turkish territories and occupy something. Ah, fuck. But that Bohemian problem is just too ugly. All right, we're going to build us an army, maybe in Bohemia itself. That would give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's probably as big as I can build. So, did I spend a cube? I don't think so. $14 built me an army there. I have military leaders I could put in play. But again, I can't afford to, right? I just can't afford to. Getting the extra die for Augustus makes more sense. Just send the king flying all over the place. The cost of a cube is too high to justify putting a leader into the battle when I got a free one every turn. You know. We draw to see if the Bohemians have a leader, and unfortunately for us, they do. They have Horatio, who's going to give us 3 blue dice. Okay. We look at the Poles. They have something here that's cannons, I believe. And that's it. All other military capabilities are gone. And we roll, and we get 2 hits against them. And now they have 5. That'll be 3 dice plus 3 dice. Whatever, if we had Janissaries or something, it's gone. I don't think we did. I think the Poles sucked all along. Okay, all these artillery do us nothing. But we do 4 hits on the Polish army, which is making life look a lot worse. Now, I can't retreat or I lose my army. So, we fight another round. All we have now is an artillery, and nothing like the dice for it, but we do get a hit. Why am I fighting these? They aren't even a danger. I don't know. Because if you recall, I looked at that and I said, well, there's no unrest around there. Screw it. There could be, like some could show up. And the fight back finishes me off. However, it does not kill the king. So he just goes back up there. That was particularly ineffective and dumb. However, building that army, I could have built the army up to a point where the Turks would lose the war. And I still have a chance to do that, right? I still have 4 more armies, so I have 5. Yeah, I could have done better than I did. I don't have any easy route now. I kind of fucked up by building that army and fighting. But let mistakes lie where they lie. I think, first of all, I'm going to take a break. But I think I've played enough at this point, and there's enough left in this war that I'm going to do a 3rd video on this particular round of cards, because plus I've babbled so fucking much. So up this one goes. Cheers. I send it up. I was on my way down and I realized I forgot my pipe and had to come back up. And this is where my fear of falling, when it happens, just happens. It's when I'm like a step down or 2 steps down and I turn around. It's just like this tremendous dizziness hits me and everything. And I really think that I'm gonna just topple over. So if at some point things just disappear, I may have gotten lucky.